Start a Scala project and use the Scala REPL.
The Midnight Coder.
In this video, we're going to set up a Scala project and use the Scala REPL. REPL stands for Read, Evaluate, Print Loop. Like many languages, Scala has a REPL, and it's basically a Scala shell. I will be focusing on Scala for the next few days, so let's get going. We're going to start the Intellij JVM to create our Scala project. Some of you may be asking if the J in Intellij stands for Java. Why are we creating our Scala project in Intellij? Well, Scala is built on top of Intellij, and there's a few implications for us. First, you need the JVM for Scala. Second, you can interop with Java very easily from Scala. You can interrupt with the Java packages built into the Java language, and you can also interrupt with the third-party packages such as simple logging facade. Now, before we get going, I want to show you the plugins I have installed. We have the Scala project plugin, and you definitely need that one. I also have 3 others, and I know at some point we're going to talk about GitHub, but I have installed GitHub Copilot, which is an assistant, an AI assistant to your code writing, increases your efficiency. And I have installed Git and GitHub in Intellij. So now let's create our project. Now I could create a project here and specify the Scala language, and I can specify the Scala build tool and the version of Scala I want to use, or specify that it's an Intellij project. But I want to use Maven. And so we go here, specify my project, Scala for the Impatient. That's because in our follow-up videos, we're going to be going through the exercises in this excellent book, Scala for the Impatient, 3rd edition. I have 2 versions of this book. One I spilled coffee on, and this is my pristine version. And this has the ISBN number, which I will put into the comments for this video along with the title. So that's going to be the title for our project. I have the JVM that I've already installed. I'm going to go to Maven Central. I'm going to stretch this dialog out so that we can see the archetypes that we're adding. Org.scala and simple. It's going to have a few problems with us. It's an old archetype, but it's the simplest one out there that I know of. And usually you end up copying one POM to another. You get, maybe you even have your own archetype or your own parent project that you use for your company. And as this generates, we're going to find that we're going to have to add some exceptions to Windows security. And watch this version 21, which is the Java we're using. Ooh, look, it generated and defaulted it to Java 1.5, which is version 5 of Java, which is absolutely what we don't need. Version 1.5 of Java and Scala version 2.8. Now that's going to cause us problems later, but the first thing is you say, well, we want to start the REPL. So let's try and start the REPL and see what problems we encounter. Do a Control-Shift-R, which is not the right shortcut. Control-Shift-D, thinking R for REPL. We'll find this project doesn't even build. And the first reason is that we don't have Scala specify. Say, oh, 2.8. Well, let's first go to here and make sure we have in our project structure, global libraries. I'm going to remove my previous time that I've added this, and I'm going to say add Scala SDK. We're going to choose Maven 2.13.12 or Coursers 2.13.12. Say okay, and automatically add it to Scala for the Impatient. Apply. Boom. And so we're going to start the REPL. And let's search Google for a solution to this problem. And I start the Scala REPL in Intellij, and I get Scala bad option dash make transitive. And what I found out is, of course, because it's doing a build of the project beforehand, it has nothing to do with the REPL, but it did have a good temporary solution. And we're only going to get our REPL running today, so I'm not going to look for a long-term solution. And by temporary solution, it's suggesting shutting down the IDE, editing the Scala compiler XML to remove this bad parameter. Well, I'm going to have to look in IntelliJ for a better solution if I'm going to run this later on. But for now, let's get this done. I'm going to go to Git, where I keep all my local copies of my repositories. I'm going to Scala the Impatience, go to the IDE file, and I'm going to open it with Notepad, which of course opens on another screen. I'm going to take out this option, save my file. I have to do this later. Okay, actually, cancel. I want to keep this around. These are snippets I copied from an existing Scala Maven file that we're going to have to put in today. Now let's restart IntelliJ Optimal. And we'll run the REPL again. All right. Now we're getting all kinds of Scala syntax errors, and part of this is the version, but there's stuff in here we're not ready to use. So we're just going to take that out. And I'm going to go to our source files. I'm going to go to test and remove these things. No reason for them yet. Going to be changing our tools around. Now we go to the POM file. This annoys me. Commented out repositories. Now if we're going to do this, do it right. So let's, dang, this is annoying. So we want 21 and 21, not Java 8. Now the Scala we installed was, let's go to 13.12. And those should be dots, not creasing font on this later. Now, there's just a bunch of stuff like the tools that are being used here, Scala test, and let's first get our properties. Why do we have the Maven compiler? We don't have the Java defined. I'm going to use Java. It might be nice to have that defined. Let's bring that notepad back up. And I'm going to go get these the stolen properties. I'll put these side by side so you can see them. Okay. So Java, source and target, 21. The UTF-8, we don't have that. So let's keep that. Let's recompile mode is all. We don't need this in twice. Oh, actually it was here. And so now our Scala version is 2.13.12. Bin version is 2.13, just the minor version removed. Scala test 3.8. I went to the Maven website for Scala and looked at Scala test. We'll do that because that's an important functionality. I knew which Scala version to use because that's the one we installed, and I knew that was compatible with AWS Spark jobs. But let's do Scala Maven dependency. So I'm not a big fan of alphas. It's a little bit too bleeding edge for me. So let's go to snap 4. And I want us to notice a little thing here is that the artifact is not Scala test, it's Scala _3. We go to that. So that's going to be important. So let's take this version and let's set that here. And then what we need to do, we want this Scala version, not the Scala test version, to be, instead of 1.2, to be Scala test that, but now the artifact isn't Scala test, it's Scala test 3. And then we're going to go reload our Maven file or PUM file. Okay. That seemed to sync. Give this a second. It's thinking. Boom. Okay. Still have a warning. What's the warning? J is a vulnerability. Oh, let's update our JUnit. I'm not planning to write JUnits today, but I just hate the idea of having a vulnerability in my home file. So let's go JUnit, Maven dependency, go Jupyter, say 5.102, and sure we don't put any unit tests in our main codes, so we keep the scope as tests. And there we go. We reload the Maven again. Now this is where it's going to have some annoyance, because that's back, reloading the Maven file. And so if we want to, we're going to have to fix that eventually. But I'm going to open my get. And for tonight, go back to Scala for the Impatient, go to my IDE and Scala compiler. We're going to open with Notepad, and we're going to take that out, and we will close these guys up. I'm gonna close this up. Do a file, save. Open that up, it's gone. So now we can restart our Maven project. I lost a bit of video there. What happened in that video was my REPL didn't work. The error message suggested a rebuild. I did the rebuild. Still didn't work. The rebuild they were suggesting was because the error usually indicated a compatibility problem between the various parts of the code, like if they were compiled with different versions of Scala. So I tried updating the Maven plugins for actually doing the build, and that didn't help, and looked into it a bit more, and they're saying, oh, you don't have your SDK defined. I was doing my SDK was fine. Looked in another article that said, look at the configuration here, and maybe the class path SDK was on no module instead of using the class path for the project. Well, that gave me an idea. It wasn't the problem, but I had been fooling around with using different versions of Scala, so I went back to the project structure, removed the other version of Scala, Courtier, I think it was, and used the Maven 213.12. Lo and behold, when we run our REPL now, wouldn't it be funny if it didn't work? I want to stop it. That's just my shortcut warning. I'm going to run it again. And voila, there's my Scala prompt for the shell running from my IDE. And I'm just going to type val x equals 3. And then that's Scala saying, yeah, I assigned x the val of 3 and it's defaulting to an int. I'm going to say print line 3. I'll print 3. I will do square root of 3. And it's going to say, oh, I need to import the math package. So I'm going to say Alt Enter on that. Import. And I'm going to say square root. Yay, 1.73, a bunch of digits. So the REPL's working. Our versions are compatible. That's as much as we're going to do with the IDE for now. It's a much easier to use the REPL online, and which we will do, and then also install the REPL across our system, just like we have a JDK installed for our system. Okay. Because I didn't exit that shell, it was giving me a little noise. So what we're going to do is we're all going to open our friend Google. And search for Scala REPL and online. And we'll go to, if we see scalalang.org, which is an important site, it's got all the language documents and it's really what we want. So let's use their online Scala. Now it's remembering where I was, I think, because last time I brought this up, it had some code in it. Well, let's just use let's bookmark this, which I already had. And let's do val x equals 3. And then we're going to do print line 3 and square root of 3. And let's run it all. Oops. All right. It didn't prompt me or warn me that I needed the import. So let's do the import now. Scala math dot, let's just do underscore and rerun again. And let's see, so it's console 3, and we see all the results for each line. To put a print line around this, just to have it actually go out to the Scala. All right, and the console, I mean. Now we're going to do one more thing. And we're going to say install Scala. And not for IDE, but we're going to go to lang.org. And for Windows, go to the Windows installer. Open up that file. Run it. It's going to block it by default, but I trust the website because it's scala-lang.org. And I've been here before. Yes, add it to the class path. It's found the components because I installed them earlier. Okay, so now we have it installed in our class path. Let's open up this terminal. We'll do Scala. We'll say val x equals 4. Decided it's an int. Can also do x colon double equals 4. Now I'll do a print len x. And of course, if I do square root without anything, oh, well, let's do an import Scala math everything and try again square root of x. We can also now do Scala math and fully qualify our square root. So if we only wanted to get one function from a package, we can do that. Yay! So I'm going to, I tried this earlier, exit doesn't work, Control D, get out, close this up. That's going to be it for this evening. When I said that I don't use the REPL a lot in Intellij, it's because I don't use a REPL a lot, period. The reason is because I can write my Scala tests and have code in that. I can run any object that's in one of my Scala files in my project, and it can process code that way. We'll be using the REPL in our next video for at least chapter 1. And we'll fix our remaining problems in our Maven file as we go. So, and that's it for tonight. And if you found this video useful, and the very least it'll show you that you do encounter bumps and you don't often set up projects, but when you got them working properly, you're going to be able to replicate them and use them again and again. So it's pretty good to get the details right. And subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.